remember the exact moment the man I loved disappeared. It wasn't a loud moment. There was no slammed door, no shouted argument, no shattered glass. The world didn't end with a bang, but with a whisper. It ended in the quiet of our kitchen, on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning. The sun was streaming through the window over the sink, catching the dust motes as they danced in the air. I was pouring a cup of tea, the one I always made for him at 10 o'clock. He was sitting at the table, his hands folded in front of him, not reading the paper, not looking at his phone, just sitting, and he said, "Anna, we need to talk." 4 words. 4 simple words that people say every day. But the way he told them, his voice was so flat, so empty. It was the voice you would use with a stranger on a bus, giving them directions. It didn't sound like my David. My David, whose voice was a warm blanket on a cold day. My David, who laughed with his whole body. This man at my table had his face, his hands, and his wedding ring. But he was a stranger. And in that moment, holding that steaming cup of tea, I knew. The life we had built, the 32 years of memories, the shared dreams of our future, it was all gone. He left me not by walking out the door, but by leaving the man he was right there in that chair. And I was left with the shell. To understand the emptiness of that Tuesday, you have to understand the fullness that came before. Our life wasn't extraordinary, and that was the beauty of it. It was built on 1,000 small, ordinary moments. We met in our 20s, 2 shy kids at a local library. He was looking for a book on woodworking. I was hiding in the poetry section. Our hands touched, reaching for the same collection by Robert Frost. He blushed. I stammered. It was a scene from a movie I never thought would be mine. We built a life from that single touch. A life of Saturday morning pancakes, of arguing over the thermostat, of holding hands during scary movies. We saved up for years to buy this very house, a small, cozy place with a big backyard for the garden we always talked about planting. We painted every room together. I remember him carrying me over the threshold, even though we'd been married for 3 years and already lived in a tiny apartment. He said, "A new house deserves a new beginning, Anna." We never had children. It was a sadness we carried together, a quiet grief that we learned to hold in our hands without letting it break us. We had each other. We had our friends, Mark and Sarah, who were like family. We had our routines. David was an accountant, steady and reliable. I worked as a receptionist at a dentist's office. Our lives were a comfortable, predictable rhythm. His kiss goodbye at 7:45 a.m. My wave from the porch. His return at 6 p.m., the sound of his key in the lock, the best sound in the world. We were a team. You and me against the world, Anna. He'd say, pulling me close after a hard day. I believed him. I built my entire world on the foundation of that belief. He was my compass, my anchor, my home. I can picture him so clearly from just a year before that day. Laughing in the garden, his face tanned. His eyes crinkling at the corners. He had this way of looking at me, a soft, focused gaze that made me feel like I was the only person in the universe. He'd bring me a single flower from the garden for no reason at all. He'd leave little notes in my lunchbox. Thinking of you. Can't wait for dinner. I love you. They say love is a verb. For 32 years we did the verbs. We cooked, we cleaned, we shopped, we vacationed, we celebrated, we comforted. I thought we were still building. I didn't realize that at some point, without telling me, David had stopped. The first sign was so small I almost missed it. It was about 6 months before the Tuesday. We were watching our favorite show, a detective series we never missed. I commented on the killer, guessing the plot twist like I always did. He didn't respond. I looked over, and he was just staring at the screen, his mind a million miles away. David, you okay? He blinked, as if coming back to himself. Yeah, fine. Just tired. I believed him. He was working hard. He'd been a little quieter, a little more withdrawn. I put it down to stress. I started making his favorite meals more often. I made sure the house was extra quiet when he got home. I was trying to fix a problem I didn't understand. The notes in the lunchbox stopped. I told myself he was just busy, forgetful. The flowers from the garden stopped. I told myself the season was over. The way he looked at me, that changed too. The soft focus became a distant gaze. He was looking through me, not at me. I felt like a ghost in my own home. But you make excuses, don't you? You tell yourself it's a phase. It's work. It's his age. It's the weather. Anything but the terrifying truth. That the person you love is slowly retreating from you, and you don't know how to call them back. The quiet between us began to grow. It was no longer a comfortable silence, the kind we used to share while reading. This was a heavy silence, a thick fog that filled the rooms. Our conversations became transactional. What do you want for dinner? I don't care. Did you pay the electricity bill? Yes. We stopped talking about dreams. We stopped talking about the news. We stopped talking about the little silly things that make up a shared life. The house, once filled with the sound of our laughter and easy chatter, became quiet. The only sounds were the clock ticking in the hallway and the hum of the refrigerator. I tried to bridge the gap. I really did. One Saturday, I suggested we go to the botanical gardens, a place we loved. He looked up from his book, his eyes blank. I've got to sort through the files in the study, Anna. Maybe another time. Another time never came. I tried talking to him. David, is everything okay between us? You seem distant. He would give me a small, tight smile. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everything's fine, Anna. Don't worry so much. But I was worried. The loneliness inside my own marriage was a physical ache. It was a hollow feeling in my chest, right there in the home we built together. I felt more alone with him in the room than I ever did when he wasn't there. I started watching him more closely, looking for clues. He spent more and more time in his study, and the door closed. He said he was working. But sometimes I'd walk past and not hear the tapping of keys. Just silence. One evening I remember so clearly. It was raining. I love the rain. I always have. Feels cleansing. One evening I remember so clearly. It was raining. I love the rain. I always have. It feels cleansing. I stood at the living room window, watching it sheet down. Remember our honeymoon in Scotland? I said, my voice soft with the memory. It rained like this every day. We didn't care. We just walked through it, holding hands. I turned to him, hoping to see a flicker of that memory in his eyes. He was looking at his phone, scrolling mindlessly. He hadn't heard a word I'd said. David? He didn't look up. Nothing, I whispered. It was nothing. That was the first night I cried myself to sleep, lying next to him in our bed, feeling the vast, cold space of the inches between us. He was right there, but he was gone. I was living with a ghost of the man I loved. The tension wasn't explosive. It was a slow, sinking feeling, like being in a boat that's taking on water. So slowly you almost don't notice you're sinking until it's too late to swim. I was bailing water with a thimble, trying to keep us afloat, while he had already stopped rowing. The unraveling accelerated in the last few months. It felt like I was watching a thread on a favorite sweater come loose, and no matter how I tried to tuck it back in, it just kept pulling, making the hole bigger and bigger. I even called his best friend Mark. I was embarrassed, but I was desperate. Mark, it's Anna. Is everything okay with David? At work, I mean. Mark sounded confused. Work? Yeah, as far as I know. Why is that? Is something wrong? No, I said quickly, my face flushing. He's been quiet lately. I thought maybe there was trouble at the office. Not that I've heard, Mark said, his voice gentle. Maybe he's just getting older, Anna. We all are. Don't fret over him. But I did fret. Because the man who was just getting older was not my David. My David would have noticed my tears. My David would have held me when I was sad. This man didn't even seem to see me anymore. The final straw, the one that broke the camel's back in the weeks before the Tuesday, was our anniversary. 32 years. I planned a special dinner. I cooked his favorite meal, coq au vin. I put on the dress he always said he loved. I lit candles. I even dug out our old wedding album and put it on the table. He came home late. He'd forgotten. He walked in, saw the table, saw me in my dress, and his face. It didn't light up with surprise or joy. It fell. It actually fell. For a split second he looked annoyed. "Oh, Anna. I'm sorry. I had a late meeting. It's our anniversary," I said, my voice small. "I know. I'm sorry. It just slipped my mind." He didn't even get me a card. We ate dinner in near silence. The coq au vin tasted like ash in my mouth. The candles flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls, shadows that seemed to mock our silent celebration. That night, as I lay awake, I knew. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. The foundation of my life was cracking, and I was powerless to stop it. I was just waiting for the final collapse. The air in the house became so thick with things unsaid you could almost touch it. I started having dreams where I was screaming at him, but no sound would come out. I'd wake up with a sore throat, the silence of the bedroom pressing in on me. I thought about suggesting marriage counseling again, but the memory of his dismissive tone from my previous attempts stopped me. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, terrified of saying the wrong thing that would finally make him say out loud what I already felt in my bones. He started going for long drives on Sunday afternoons. He said he needed to clear his head. He'd be gone for 3-4 hours at a time. I never asked where he went. I was too afraid of the answer. I would sit in the living room watching the clock, the hollow feeling in my chest growing with every tick. I look back at that time now, and I see a woman who was slowly erasing herself. I was so focused on trying to decipher him, to fix us, that I completely lost sight of me. My own hobbies fell away. My conversations with friends became superficial because I was too ashamed to tell them the truth about the chasm opening up in my marriage. I was a satellite, and my husband was my planet. And my planet was drifting out of orbit, pulling my whole world into chaos. And then it was Tuesday. A perfectly normal Tuesday. The sun was out. The birds were singing. I'd slept poorly, my mind churning with worry. But the morning routine was the same. I got up, made coffee and toasted bread. David came down, dressed for work. He was quiet, but that was normal now. He sat at the table. I bustled about, putting his toast on a plate. "The weather looks lovely today," I said, trying to inject some normalcy into the heavy air. I might finally get to weeding the flower beds. He didn't respond. He just watched me. His gaze was so intense that it made me stop what I was doing. "David, is something on your shirt?" I asked, trying to make a joke. He shook his head slowly. Then he took a deep breath, the kind you take before you jump into cold water. And he said those 4 words. "Anna, we need to talk." My heart, which had been fluttering with anxiety for months, suddenly went still. This was it. The moment I had been dreading. I slowly walked to the counter and poured his tea, my hands trembling. I needed something to do, something to hold on to. I brought the cup to the table and set it in front of him. The steam rose between us like a veil. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What is it?" He looked down at his hands. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know how to say this." "Just say it, David." A strange calm was settling over me. The calm before the storm. He took another breath. "I'm not happy, Anna." The words hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. I haven't been happy for a long time. Each word was a hammer blow. I haven't been happy. "What? What are you talking about?" I stammered. "We have a good life. We have this house, our friends." "This isn't about the house or our friends," he said. His voice still that terrible, flat monotone. "This is about me. About us. We're just going through the motions. We have been for years. We're like roommates, Anna. Not husband and wife. Roommates. The word felt foreign on my tongue. David, we've been married for 32 years. Of course it changes. It deepens. It becomes comfortable. I don't want to be comfortable, he said, and for the first time, there was a spark of emotion in his voice. It was frustrating. I feel like I'm disappearing. I look in the mirror and I don't know who I am anymore. I'm David, the accountant. David, Anna's husband. But who am I? I stared at him, completely bewildered. We're a partnership, David. Our lives are intertwined. That's what marriage is it? He asked, finally looking at me. His eyes were filled with a pain I didn't understand. Because I feel like I've lost myself in this partnership. And I can't do it anymore. The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. What are you saying? He looked away again. I'm saying I need to find myself. I need space. Time. Time for what? My voice was rising, panic seeping through the calm. David, look at me. We can work on this. We can go to counseling. We can find new hobbies together. We can travel. Remember we talked about Italy? He shook his head, a slow final movement. It's too late for that, Anna. Too late? How can it be too late? I'm right here. I've always been right here. I know, he whispered. And that's the problem. The cruelty of that statement took my breath away. I felt like I'd been physically struck. My presence, my love, my steadfastness was the problem? So what does this mean? I just asked, my body numb. What are you going to do? He was silent for a long time. The clock in the hallway ticked, measuring out the end of my world. I've rented an apartment, he said softly, in the city. I'm moving out today. The floor fell away from beneath me. Today? He hadn't even given me a warning. He had planned this, executed it, all while sitting across from me at dinner, lying next to me in bed. You have an apartment? I could barely form the words. I've been looking for a few weeks. A few weeks. A hysterical laugh bubbled in my throat. You've been planning to leave me for weeks? And you didn't think to talk to me about it? To give me a chance? I knew how this conversation would go, he said, his voice returning to that infuriating calm. I knew you'd try to fix it. And Anna, I don't want to be fixed. I just want to be free. Free? The word echoed in the silent kitchen. Free from me. Free from our home. Free from our lives. I looked at him, at this man I had loved for more than half my life. I searched his face for any sign of the boy from the library, the man who carried me over the threshold. There was nothing. His eyes were the eyes of a stranger. A polite, determined, but utterly alien stranger. He had already left. The packing, the moving, it was just a formality. The essential part of him, his soul, his love for me, had already vacated the premises. He stood up, his chair scraping against the tile floor. The sound was unbearably loud. My bags are packed. They're in the car. He had packed his bags. This morning, while I was sleeping, he walked to the door. I just stood there, frozen, watching him. He paused with his hand on the knob. He didn't look back. I'm sorry, Anna. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut. Not a slam. Quiet, precise, final click. I stood in the kitchen for a long, long time. The cup of tea I had poured for him was still on the table, growing cold. The sun was still shining. The world was still turning. But my husband had become a stranger, and he had just walked out of our home without a backward glance. The days that followed were a blur, a fog of grief. I moved through the house like a ghost. Everything was a reminder. His favorite chair empty. His side of the closet half empty now. The garage where his car wasn't. The silence was deafening. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just existed. The pain was so immense, so all-consuming, it was almost a physical presence. It sat on my chest, making it hard to breathe. It was a fragile, open wound that nothing could soothe. Friends called. Mark and Sarah came over, their faces etched with concern. They were as shocked as I was. We had no idea, Anna. He never said a word. They tried to comfort me, to bring me food, to get me to talk. But their words felt distant, like they were speaking to me from the other end of a long tunnel. I was drowning in the whys. Why wasn't I enough? What had I done wrong? Why didn't I see it coming? I replayed every moment of the last few years, searching for clues I had missed, for the moment I had failed him. The guilt was a heavy chain around my neck. After a few weeks, the shock began to wear off, and a deep, profound anger set in. How dare he? How dare he do this to us? How dare he throw away 32 years without even a fight? He didn't just leave me, he betrayed me. He made a unilateral decision to end our marriage without giving me a voice, without any respect for the life we had built. The man I thought was kind and steady had been a coward. I cried tears of rage. I screamed into pillows. I thought about calling him, telling him exactly what I thought of him. But I didn't. What was the point? The stranger in the city apartment wouldn't understand. One rainy afternoon, about 2 months after he left, I was cleaning out the study. I found a box of old photos he had missed. There we were, young and smiling, our arms wrapped around each other. There was a picture from our 10th anniversary, laughing on a beach. We looked so in love. We were so in love. And as I looked at those pictures, a strange realization dawned on me. I was mourning the man in these photos. The young David. The middle-aged David. But the man who left me. That wasn't the same person. The man I loved was gone. He had started disappearing long before that Tuesday in the kitchen. My anger began to slowly morph into a heartbreaking acceptance. This wasn't about me not being enough. This was about him. His crisis. His journey. Or whatever he wanted to call it. I couldn't have stopped it because I wasn't the cause of it. It was the beginning of moving on. I started taking small steps to reclaim my life. My life, not ours. It was terrifying. I ate a meal by myself at our kitchen table. I went to the grocery store and bought food only for myself. I called a friend and went for a walk. Every small action felt like a victory. The hardest part was sleeping in our bed alone. So one day I did something radical. I moved the bed to a different wall. I bought new bed sheets. A bold floral pattern he would have hated. It was a small thing, but it was my space now. I started gardening again. Not our garden. My garden. I planted flowers I loved, without considering his preferences. I spent hours with my hands in the soil, feeling a connection to the earth, to life, that I hadn't felt in a long time. The garden became my therapy. Months passed. The seasons changed. The sharp, stabbing pain of his absence dulled into a constant, manageable ache. I learned to live with the ghost of our marriage. I learned to enjoy my own company. I rediscovered the person I was before I was David's wife. I remembered that I liked painting. I started a small, terrible watercolor class. I was bad at it, but it made me laugh. I heard snippets about him through mutual friends. He was living in the city. He'd taken up painting, ironically. He was finding himself. I felt nothing. No anger, no longing. Just a distant pity. He was searching for something outside himself that he had lost inside. And he had broken our home to do it. I never filed for divorce. He did a year after he left. Came in the mail, a sterile legal document. I signed it without ceremony. The day it was final, I sat in my garden and I cried. Not for the stranger he had become, but for the dream we had shared. I cried for the young couple in the library. I cried for the life we planned. I gave myself that one day to grieve it all, properly. And then, the next morning I got up, made myself a cup of tea and got on with my life. My life. It's been 5 years now since that Tuesday morning. The day my husband became a stranger. Do I still think about it? Of course. Some memories are etched into your bones. But the pain is no longer a sharp knife. It's an old scar. You know it's there, you can feel its ridge, but it doesn't hurt anymore. I still live in our house, but it's truly my home now. It's filled with my things, my paintings, my flowers. The silence is no longer heavy. It's peaceful. I've learned to cherish my own solitude. I saw David once about a year ago. I was at a farmer's market buying tomatoes. I looked up, and there he was on the other side of the stall. He looked older, thinner. He was with a woman, someone I didn't know. He saw me, and for a second our eyes met. There was a flicker of something in his gaze. Recognition, maybe regret, maybe just surprise. He gave me a small, hesitant nod. I nodded back. A simple, calm acknowledgement, and then I turned away, picked out my tomato, and paid the vendor. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. He was just a man I used to know. That's when I knew I was truly healed. The stranger had no power over me anymore. If I could go back and talk to that heartbroken woman standing in the kitchen, holding a cold cup of tea, I would tell her this. I know it feels like the end of everything. And in a way it is. It's the end of the life you knew. But it is not the end of you. The pain will change you. It will carve you out, hollow you, and it will be the hardest thing you ever endure. But if you let it, that hollow space will not stay empty. It will fill with a new strength, a new understanding, a new compassion for yourself and for others who are hurting. Love is a beautiful thing. But it should be a sanctuary, not a prison. It should be a garden where two people grow, together and individually. If one person stops growing or decides they need a different soil, you can't force the flower to bloom. I don't hate David. I can't. To hate him would be to give the stranger too much space in my heart. I have made peace with his choice. I have forgiven him, not for his sake, but for my own. To free myself from the weight of bitterness. My life is different now. Quieter. Simpler. It is a life built on my own terms. And there is a deep, profound peace in that. The day my husband became a stranger was the worst day of my life. But in a strange, roundabout way. It was also the day I began the long, slow journey back to myself. And for that I find myself in ways I never imagined, profoundly grateful. To those who stayed with me through every breath of this tale, you are the quiet light that turns words into meaning, the gentle echo that makes a story live beyond its ending. For your presence, your listening hearts, I am endlessly grateful. This was not just my story. It became ours, woven together in the silence between each line. Until we meet again, may our stories find each other.